what we're going to be doing today is to respond to Sheikh Awal, Sheikh Mohammed Awal. Sheikh Mohammed Awal is actually an Islamic comparator, is an Islamic Dawah preacher, and he emphasizes on the Bible and the Quran. So what it means is that when Sheikh Awal is talking, he's talking in relation to the Bible and the Quran. Of course, he endeavors to defend the Islamic faith, and they try to show that the Christian faith is not credible. All right, so let us just give you a background to what happened, the reason why we're doing what we're doing today, and that's why I call this the background, okay, of the whole scenario. So what happened was that we received a clip, all right, of Sheikh Awal in a particular debate. So he was actually having a debate with somebody, and it seems to be the rebuttal session. So the rebuttal session, for those who are not familiar with that term, is the second time when a speaker will come to give a presentation, not a new presentation, but what he's saying at that point in time is that he's refuting what his opponent has said. So imagine Mr. A and Mr. B are both having the debate. So two of them have given their opening statements, okay, in defense of whatever they are actually talking about. And then Mr. A now comes back again, all right, to say, hey, Mr. B, these are your presentation. These are the things that you have said so far. I do not agree with them. And then he began to look at those arguments one after the other, and he's doing that. I mean, he's looking at them to tear them apart. What I mean by that is that he's refuting them, showing that those arguments are not true. So I guess that was what was happening when Sheikh Awal was seen in this video. So he was providing a rebuttal, a response to the Christian opponent or interlocutor. I didn't even know who the person is because I didn't see the entire debate. It was just that 9-minute clip that I watched. And it was fascinating because within that 9 minutes, Sheikh Awal was able to touch on a couple of things, different topics as related to the Bible and the Quran. So tonight, what we're going to be doing is to take a look at a couple of this clip. Our mission, let me just start, by saying this. Our mission is to make sure that we refute the entire 9-minute video. Okay, we're reviewing it, and then we're going to be refuting the allegations that Sheikh Awal has against the Christian faith. But if we're not able to finish up tonight, tomorrow is always there, or we can even have it next week Sunday. All right, we can continue this next week Sunday because this was supposed to be on a Sunday in the very first place. So please, I want you to be patient with us. I want you to relax. If you have a popcorn, you can just get your popcorn because I promise you this is going to be a smooth journey. It's going to be an interesting journey. But why? Because in this particular journey, you're going to be seeing the typical Islamic allegation against the Christian faith. All right, it is typical. It's not unique to Sheikh Awal alone. Then you will be seeing how we as Christians can respond to these claims, all right? How we can respond to these claims, using logic and also especially using the scriptures as well. So let's get started. Remember, we're going to be taking a look at the clip, and then I'll be preferring my response and also refutation to what, Sheikh Awal said so far. So let's start with the very first part of Sheikh Awal's presentation and statement. So let's go ahead. Thank you.
That false prophet shall be put to death. The false prophet and the dreamer of dreams shall be put to death. All false prophets, according to the Bible, shall be put to death. I'm asking the question, how did Paul end his life? What was the end of Paul? Paul was beheaded, cut into pieces. Where? In Rome, at the time of Emperor Nero. He was beheaded and cut into pieces. And the Bible, Deuteronomy chapter 26, verse 14 said, the false prophet and a dreamer of dreams shall be put to death. How was Peter killed? Peter was hung on the cross upside down. False prophets.
All right, so we're listening to Sheikh Awal right there, and he's saying that, well, Paul had to be a false prophet. Peter had to be a false prophet. Why? Because they were killed in a very horrible way. I mean, in a horrible way. Paul, for instance, was beheaded, all right? And then Peter was crucified upside down. So this is the way it works. Peter was actually crucified just like our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. But that cross was turned upside down, okay? So what I mean was that when it was turned upside down, his head was actually lying or was against the ground, and then the legs are up. Can you see that? It was such a very horrible death. Now, the argument of Sheikh Awal right there is that for the fact that Paul was beheaded and Peter was crucified upside down, it therefore means that they are false prophets. I want you to get the logic. The logic is this. If anybody die horribly, okay, it therefore means that that person had to be a false prophet. So that's the argument. It's very simple. It is very clear. But you see, the problem with this argument is that we can go on and see how we can, attend to this argument and, look at it from different angles. The first problem with this argument is that there are a lot of prophets in the Quran that were killed by the Jews. In the Quran, all right? In fact, Allah attests to that. Allah said that there are so many prophets that He has sent, to, the Jews and some other people, and they were killed by these people. Does it mean that they are false prophets? Remember, they are the prophet of Allah, okay? But then when this prophet was sent to, the people that Allah sent this prophet to, they killed them. Does it mean that this prophet are false prophets? Now, if it means that the prophet are false prophet, it means that these prophets are also worshiping a false god. Because if a prophet is a false prophet, it means that the one to whom the prophet is witnessing about is also false. So if those to whom the prophets that Allah sent to the people that were killed, all right, this prophet that were killed, if they were false prophet, it means that Allah is a false god. We see, but we're not going to be going that route, all right? That is just a kind of preamble. That's just, a kind of introduction. The main example I want to use right here is the example of the Prophet of Islam. Now, if you're a Muslim watching this, have you ever asked yourself this question? How did the Prophet of Islam die? How did Prophet Muhammad die? Have you ever asked that question? Now, I know that a couple of you must have been told, well, Muhammad actually died of high fever. Yes, I've had a Muslim told me that before. He said it was high fever that killed the Prophet of Islam. But by the time you take a look at the Islamic literature, especially the Hadith, you will discover that the Prophet of Islam actually died by, don't let me say it, let's actually see what the Hadith narration says. So let's read together. So we're going to be reading the Hadith right now. Sahih Bukhari, volume 5, book 59, Hadith number 713. Here's what the Hadith says. Aisha is the one making this narration. Aisha said, narrated Aisha the Prophet in his helmet in which he died, used to say, oh, Aisha, I still feel the pain caused by the food I ate at Khaybar. And at this time, I feel as if my Hilfa is being caught from that poison. So I wanted to take note of what is being said right here. Aisha is the youngest wife of the Prophet, is the most beloved wife of the Prophet, okay? She is the one saying this, and she's the closest to the Prophet out of all the, the wives that the Prophet actually had. So she's the one saying this. She's saying that the Prophet would usually complain of the poison that he ate at Khaybar, okay? Because he was actually given the poison. We're going to be going to, the background history because the Hadith narration also give us an hint into that. So the Prophet of Islam was poisoned at Khaybar. And after he was poisoned, that poison continues to haunt him. In fact, it got so serious that the Prophet of Islam would say that it felt as though his aorta is being cut off. Okay, and that's a very serious thing. When your aorta is cut off, it's as good as, you are good as being dead. All right. So the Prophet of Islam was poisoned, and as a result of that, he died. Okay. Now, somebody may be saying, well, Korede, you are reading too much into this. No, I'm not reading too much into this. Let's read the Hadith narration again. All right. Here's what Aisha said. Aisha said, narrated the Prophet in his ailment in which he died. His ailment in which he died. What is ailment? Sickness. All right. Infirmities. So this is the infirmity that led to his death. What does the Prophet used to say? The Prophet will say, oh, Aisha, I still feel the pain caused by the food I ate at Khaybar. And at this time, I felt as if my aorta is being cut off from that poison. So the Prophet of Islam was actually given poison at Khaybar. Now, for some of you might be asking, hey, what happened at Khaybar? Okay, let's actually read what happened at Khaybar, because the Prophet of Islam actually went on expedition. Okay, he went to Khaybar, sacked the city, conquered the place. And a couple of people were actually angry at him. But let us just read the story. It says, narrated Abu Hurairah, when Khaybar was conquered, a roasted poisoned sheep was presented to the Prophet, that's to Muhammad, as a gift by the Jews. The Prophet ordered, let all the Jews who have been here be assembled before me. The Jews were collected, and the Prophet said to them, I am going to ask you a question. Will you tell me the truth? Will you tell the truth? They said yes. The Prophet asked, who is your father? They replied, so and so. He said, you have told a lie. Your father is so and so. They said, you are right. He said, will you now tell me the truth if I ask you about something? They replied, yes, O Abu Kazim. If we should tell the lie, you can realize our lie as you have done regarding our father. On that he asked, who are the people of hell? Who are the people of hellfire? They said, we shall remain in hellfire for a short period. And after that, you will replace us. The prophet said, you may be cursed and humiliated in it. By Allah, we shall never replace you. Then he asked, will you now tell me the truth if I ask you a question? They said, yes, O Abu Kazim. He asked, have you poisoned this sheep? They said, yes. He asked, what made you do so? They said, we wanted to know if you were a liar, in which case we will get rid of you. And if you're a prophet, then the poison will not harm you. So get the gist of the story. When the prophet of Islam went to Khaybar, okay, sacked the city, conquered the city, some Jews were not happy with him. All right, so they decided to poison the prophet of Islam. By the way, there are different narrations of this same story. Okay, in the Hadith, some narration actually says that it was a woman that presented it to the prophet of Islam. So, but whichever narration it is, all right, okay. So let's just go with this one. All right. So the prophet of Islam sacked the city, and then some Jews were not happy with him, and then they came presenting a food that was poisoned to him. So after asking them series of questions, the last one, according to this Hadith narration, that was asked was that he asked them, did you poison the sheep? And they said, yes, we poisoned it. And he asked them, why did you do that? They said, it's very simple. We poisoned this so that if you are a prophet of God, nothing will happen to you. All right? Please, I want you to take note of this. If you are a prophet of God, nothing will happen to you. But if you are not a prophet of God, it will harm you. And that's exactly what happened to the prophet of Islam. The prophet of Islam was not only harmed by this poison, the prophet of Islam was killed by this poison. So if we're going to go by the example and also the argument of Sheikh Awal, it must therefore mean that Muhammad is a false prophet. Why? Because he died of poison. Remember the argument of Sheikh Awal. The reason why Paul is a false prophet, was a false prophet, and also the reason why Peter was a false prophet is because Paul was beheaded by Nero and Peter was crucified and torn upside down. Because they died a horrible death, therefore they are false prophets. So if we're going to turn the same table, or we're going to be using the same argument, it means that Muhammad is also a false prophet. Why? Because Muhammad died of poison. Okay? Now, we can even strengthen our argument. And this is the argument we're strengthening. Remember, the Jews said that if Muhammad is truly a prophet of God, nothing will happen to him. But if he's not a prophet of God, then it will be harmed. But what happened to the prophet? Was he harmed or not? It was actually harmed. So thank you, Sheikh Awal, for showing to us that your prophet is actually a false prophet. That's what you have done to us. I mean, you've just shown us clearly that your prophet is a false prophet. But see, brethren, that is not just the only thing. Okay, that's not the only evidence. Now, some brethren are actually, because, a lot of people are looking at things from different angles. Some have actually suggested that the reason why Muhammad even died was because he had gone against the commandment of Allah. Now, you might be asking me the question, how did that happen? Let's read this verse of the Quran. So, in the Quran, we're reading this in Quran chapter 69 from verse 44 to 46. Quran chapter 69 from verse 44 to 46. Now, what you will notice is that I have supplied the references that I'm using, and I'm also using the translation right there. So just in case if you're a Muslim, you want to check the translation that I'm using, yes, you can. You can go online and check the translation that I'm using. And I'm using right here, Sahih International. All right? Yes, you can check that, Sahih International. So let's go with this. We read, and if he, that's Muhammad, okay, had made up against, if he, Muhammad, had made up about us some false sayings, we would have seized him by the right hand. Then, that's verse 46 right now. Then we would have cut from him the hayota. Please take note of this. Allah is saying that if Muhammad have said anything that is against us, okay, if Muhammad has said anything that is against us, or that he has made up something against us, what are we going to do? We're going to seize him by the right hand, and then 46 says, we are going to cut off his aorta. Is that not interesting? This is what Allah is saying in the Quran. So Allah is saying that if Muhammad have done this, we're going to do this. Remember what Muhammad said in that Hadith narration. He said he felt as if his aorta has been cut off. So the question is, who cut off Muhammad's aorta? All right. Remember, this is another interesting view we're looking at now. So apart from the part that, he was poisoned by the Jews and the poison affected him till he died, okay, that is just one argument. But we're looking at another interesting argument now, that why was Muhammad aorta cut off? All right. According to the Quran, it could have been that because he made up something, against Allah, meaning that probably he forged up a revelation, something that Allah has not sent to him. So Sheikh Awal, you have to be very careful with the argument that you make. You have to be very, very careful. Why? Because this argument that you're making right now, I mean, they are actually going against Islam and they're going against your Quran. And that is the reason why by the time you take a look at this verse and then we'll take a look at the Hadith narration, look at what it says. Aisha saying again that narrated Aisha, that means Aisha was the one saying this, okay? In his ailment in which he died, used to say, "Oh Aisha, I feel the pain caused by the food I ate at Khaybar, and at this time I felt as if my aorta is being cut off." Remember, Allah says that He's going to cut off Muhammad's aorta if he made something up. Now Muhammad is saying that his aorta has been cut off. All right. If you had 1 + 1 together, you get 2, and that is interesting view that some people had actually supplied so far. All right, so that takes care of the first, allegation and the first argument that Sheikh Awal is making.